No, I do not. I do, but it's not.
Everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you will take a seat.
Yeah, but I can pick you back.
Are y'all ready? Okay, if I get your attention, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. I want to thank you guys for being here this morning. And if you haven't already, we have coffee over here, and we have donuts and bread. Oh, you're on my list. I'm going to talk about you next. Just a few quick housekeeping items before we begin. If you could please silence your phones and place them on vibrate during the presentation, or go stand over here. If you need to take a call or have a conversation, please step away from the meeting area so it doesn't cause a distraction for our presenters or for others that are here to listen and learn what CSWR has to say today. Also, please sign up for alerts on the website if you haven't already. I noticed we don't have everyone signed up for alerts, and that's how we keep people informed in our community or in our, members, what's going on with the agendas, notices, updates, like this town hall boil water notices. And we do get a lot of email where people saying, I didn't know this, I didn't know this. Well, I look and I see that they haven't signed up for alerts. So to make sure everybody knew about today's meeting, I actually have spent quite some time putting together an updated email. We did have it from the billing department, but there were a lot of mistakes in that. People hadn't updated their email addresses. So these are a very reliable way to stay informed, so if you could please do that, I really appreciate it. Additionally, please note that the board voted on a letter of intent from CSWR Resources to accept their offer. However, we don't have a say in this. It's the members that have a say. And I know a lot of people are confused. They're like, oh, okay, the board voted on it. No. We just voted to accept the letter of intent. There actually will be a member vote on December 13th for this, and the members will have a say. And that will be at a members meeting. You can vote in person or you can vote at the members meeting. And we will have the election procedures that we just voted for in the last board meeting. We'll have them posted on the website. We will have an independent election officer for this, or auditor.
What is the requirement for it passing?
It's a majority of those who vote. We do not have in our bylaws a provision, and so when you don't have a provision like that in your articles or in your bylaws, then it's what they say is silent. And if you look at what the statute says, and the statute says it's a majority of those who vote, whether in person or sending their ballot in. Yeah, unlike the POA. So just to provide some quick background information before I hand it off to CSWR, we do have regularly scheduled board meetings, and we talk about all the issues, and we have been since we've been on the board, since March and April, and like everything in this community, not a whole lot of people show up to these meetings, but there's a lot going on, and we hear a lot in emails and from other people talking, and it's incorrect information, and it's like they would come to board meetings, they probably have a good idea of what really is going on. And our focus, the board's focus, has always been about transparency and getting the corporation on solid ground since we've been on the board. And this means keeping you guys informed about where we are financially, what's going on with our operations, how they're performing, and what issues, violations we have pending right now. And when we took office, unfortunately there was a whole bunch of requirements by the PUC for filings, and none of them had been completed for about a year. And that along with others is why the PUC, I think, put us into the temporary manager oversight. And of course that's gone after 6 months. They thought that we could do a better job than they could, and we are. And so we have completed to date, we have every filing we're required to file has been filed. And that includes the bylaws and the tariff and like the surcharges and refund reports. And I mean, you name it, they they require a lot of filings, and one of them being a financial audit that's been like kicked down the road for so many years. And finally, we are completing that, and it will be done in 2 weeks, and it will be provided to everyone, and most importantly to the QC who requires that. So our goal here is about keeping Windermere Water Supply Corporation fully compliant, the board, within state regulations, and paying our vendors. My gosh, vendors were not being paid. And evaluating the condition of the facilities, including a clarifier, which is paramount to running this utility. And we never had a new clarifier installed. And just so you know what a clarifier does, it processes the water from the lake, and then it moves on to the next stage. And that's how we get our clean water, and that's how it's delivered to you through the pipes. And it's essential to have a clarifier that's operating. And currently, right now, it's essentially being held together by kind of duct tape. Not literally, but you get the idea. So this project is in desperate need of completion, and TCQ hit us for that. It wasn't a violation, but they said they're going to come back around, and that was before this board. It was the last board. And we got to get that done, and then we have the effluent field. It's required to have a fence, 24 acres around a field at the type of water that we are dispersing. And there is no ifs, ands, or buts. We have to put a fence around it, and it's going to require 24 acres, TCQ rules. Should have been done several years ago, but it wasn't. We got to do it. These challenges come with significant costs. Estimated upwards to around $1 million to address these. And the only way we're going to get that money is from you guys, because we're a nonprofit, and that's going to be either through a assessment or the rates will be going up. That being said, this is not a meeting to discuss all this stuff. This is really a meeting for CSWR, and they're going to cover all of this stuff. They're not going to cover it. That stuff I just talked about, we cover at board meetings. So please come to board meetings so you can hear about that. They're not going to really touch on everything I just said. They're going to touch on their company and what they can do and how it's could move this community and this water system forward. So without any further ado, I want to pass this on to CSWR. They have several years in this industry. Their presentation will give everyone a clear sense of what partnering with them could mean for our community. Finally, I ask everyone to stay respectful and allow our guests to get through their presentation. Please do not interrupt or call out. If you have a question, just go ahead and raise your hand, and I'm sure they'll answer that question. Let's not turn this into an argument. Let's stay positive and hear what they have to say. If you have questions for the board members, there's two other here, I think Karen and Alan. So this is a meeting about these guys, and so I'm going to go ahead and tease it over to you guys. This is Sean Nichols. He's the Vice President. First one, gentleman here. He's Vice President of Business Development and Strategic Planning. And then we have next to him Clarence Whitworth, and he is Regional Manager of Operations in Texas and Arizona, or just Texas?
Texas. Sometimes Arizona.
Okay.
That's what's going on out there.
Okay, great. So let's go ahead and give them a warm welcome and give them our full attention.
Well, I thought I had a water, so let me
I'll get you one. Right
grab
here.
water. So, thank you, Patty. As Patty said, I'm Sean Nichols. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, attended Oklahoma State, and then went on to Waco and did graduate work at Baylor University. My first job out of school was in Dallas for a gentleman by the name of Bum Bright, and some of y'all might know who he is. He used to own the Cowboys, which was my boyhood idol team. Roger Staubach, I'd live and die by how the Cowboys did each Sunday. I have a harder time rooting for the current ownership group in Dallas, but I've got a great memories as kids watching the Cowboys play. prior to getting in the water space, I was in oil and gas for a number of years, and then I was more recently in the electric utility business in Texas. So I've spent a lot of time in Texas over the years. Never been able to actually get here permanently, but maybe one day, right? But I love Texas. I love doing business here. It's a great state to do business in. I've done business with LCRA, San Antonio, and Austin, and just a number of different entities. And when our founder asked me to come work for him about 7 or 8 years ago, I made the condition that I wanted to have the responsibility and the opportunity to be in the Texas market. We had no presence in Texas at that time. And so I brought some maps, and you can kind of see, been somewhat busy the last 7 or 8 years. We have about 180 different locations throughout the state. And then we did a little zoom in, sort of more relevant. The little red star is where we're at today. And so you can see where our systems are that are in a relatively close proximity of where we're at. So that's a little bit about me, and real quick about our company. I'll get into some more of that, but I do want Clarence to introduce himself and talk about, where you came from and how you got here, and just sort of what you do.
Okay. So my name is Clarence Whitwer. It's actually Clarence Ludwig Whitwer. It's very German. People get scared sometimes. It's fine. We don't take over everybody. But yeah, we like to feed people, though. I love that. But I've been in Texas my entire life. Born in Galveston, live not too far from the Houston area. I do have the responsibility for all of Texas, help out with some surrounding states when needed. Got a couple sites actually in Louisiana that we run, our Texas guys do, so some people don't know that. But I am in the operations side. I am responsible for the operations. Our team, should the membership decide to go forth with this down the road, this would be something, I would be the one out there getting those violations fixed and putting up that fence and make sure the clarifier got fixed and all that. So our team would be. We've got some good people that work for us. So, but I have this coming June will be 35 years in the business for me. I am the highest licensed water and wastewater operator in the state of Texas. So I retired as a public works director for the city of Pearland, if you know that area, a very large city, south of Houston now. And before that, I was assistant director for the city of Houston many years, but I started in small cities. I started, I think, in '90 in a hole, putting clamps on pipes. I went to school at night. So most recently, I'm still on the board for the Texas Water Utilities Association. Just finished my year as chairman of the board and the president before that. Got 2 more years on the board. I also spent about a decade as a TCQ environmentor. So we're the ones that go out for free at our own cost when a inspector goes out and say, hey, this system really needs help. Can you go out there and offer free technical? So that's something that I've done for a very long time. Little weird thing about me that some people don't know, and it really gets people straight when I tell them I've been doing this for 35 years, is I actually have a degree in music, instrumental performance. I've studied with the Houston Symphony for many, many years. David Kirk plays tuba down there, so I play tuba, not that oom-pa-pa stuff. It's okay if you like that. I'm a symphony guy. But people are like, how did you get here? I'm like, one feeds you, one feeds the soul. So that's how I'm here.
Thanks, Clarence. That's great. I didn't know about. And I thought tubas only played oom-pa-pa.
I don't even own a sousaphone.
Yeah. So a little bit about Central State. So our founder is a gentleman by the name of Josiah Cox. I consider him a young man. He's probably mid-40s. His background is in civil engineering. He worked for an engineering firm, drawing plans for subdivision wastewater treatment plants. And following 2008, what he noticed in Missouri was there was a number of subdivisions that were in the process of being built out, and in the financial collapse of 2008, builders either just picked up and left town. Several of them got arrested and thrown in jail, and the communities were left with facilities that were designed to operate for 300, 400, 500 houses, but they only had 50 built. So they don't really work very good when they're not, fully loaded. And so Josiah saw an opportunity, and he spent maybe 3 years trying to find someone to believe in his vision. He grew up in a pretty small rural community in Missouri, went on to play football at the University of Kansas, and he had a heart for smaller rural communities. And most of the competitors, if you will, want to operate large systems. They want to buy the city of San Antonio's water and wastewater system. They don't want to mess with, isn't probably not the right word, but they don't want the challenges of having to focus on smaller systems. So his vision was, there's all these small rural communities that deserve and need clean water, and so he saw an opportunity, spent about 3 years trying to get some seed money to get started. Finally found a couple guys in California to give him $3 million, and he got started. Shortly after that, I joined him. At the time, I think he might have had a dozen systems, mostly in Missouri, in and around St. Louis. And I think if you asked him back then, that was his initial dream, was to be self-employed, have something to provide for his family, and probably didn't see much beyond Missouri. Well, fast forward to today, 11, 12 years later, we're in 11 states. We're the 10th largest water and wastewater utility in the United States. We're the largest single owner of wastewater treatment plants, and we have converted more of those from non-compliance to compliance than any other company in the United States. So we're very proud of our track record. We feel like we're doing God's work. We feel like we're doing a good thing for the environment and for the communities that often get overlooked. So that's sort of who we are and what we do. We have a number of, it's fine for me to come up and say that, but there's also on the record commissioners in most of the states that we've operated on, Texas for sure, publicly saying what a great job we've done. One of the systems that's not far from here is a small system called Castle Cone, which is south of Kerrville, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Was maybe in receivership and out of compliance for nearly 20 years. And whoever the heir was, the owner had passed away, and the heirs really didn't want anything to do with anyway, we tracked him down. He's somewhere in Europe. He signed the paperwork. We invested in taking over and fixed that system. And so after that, at the time, the chairwoman of the PUCs publicly acknowledged how instrumental we were in that work and how grateful she was for our involvement. Because of that, we get from time to time referrals from the PUC, and that's actually how I got here. Is someone from the PUC called our attorney in Austin and said, "Can you get Central States to go call Windermere and see if there's anything that we could do to help you guys out?" And initially, the answer was no, because the ask was simply to come and serve in a temporary role. And we really said, look, we want to be in an ownership role. We're a long-term fix it and own it and operate it. And if that became available, then we'd be interested. So several months after that, call came back again. Would you consider this in an ownership role? And that's when I reached out to Patty and we began our discussions. This process is really slow. We deal with bureaucracy because we're heavily regulated. So today is the first step to probably a 2-year process. So I don't want you to feel like, well, tomorrow you're going to have a new
Yeah, you're not signing over today. This takes a while.
There'll be a vote, as Patty said, I think in December. After that, we'll have a filing that we make, and there's a number of third parties that we have to rely on. And it takes them time to do their job, but it also takes time just to get to the project, because we'll have engineers and lawyers and different people, and they'll have a stack of work, and they'll say, well, yeah, but it'll be 8 weeks before I can get started, and then it'll take me 8 weeks to do the work, and then they all kind of stack up. So I'd like to tell you we could do it in 6 months, but after doing 70 plus in Texas over the last 7 years, it's going to be 18 months, give or take. So I just want to be very transparent with you about the process and how long it takes. So I've talked long enough, probably more than I wanted to, because my voice is cracking. I'm happy to answer any questions.
During that 18-month process, will you guys have any legal oversight over what's going on here?
Technically, no. Now, that doesn't mean we can't be helpful, but legally, the HOA will still own the system and have responsibility for it.
On the property that's right across from the windsock on Exeter, we have horses, and the greenbelt has been our friend for years. We use it for riding, and I'm wondering if the 24-acre fence would affect the utility access that they have, because the utility trucks come through there for the power lines. And where about is the 24 acres? Is it long ways, or is it just over where the gray area sprinklers are sprinkled?
Well, that's more like a board question. These guys are like here to talk about CSWR. We can have a private conversation about that with the fans, with you guys. We've talked about that several times at our open board meetings, but I'm more than happy to talk to you afterwards.
Okay.
Just one-to-one, we can discuss that.
So
Okay.
just, what I would add is I don't know enough of the specifics to answer your question, but I would say we certainly work with other utilities like electric and gas and provide easements and right-of-ways for road access.
Are y'all affiliated with the Thomas Ranch?
We are
Good.
not.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
If y'all were to own this thing, what do you plan to do with it? Do you plan to enlarge it? Do you plan to send it out to other subdivisions? Or what do you plan to do with that facility there?
Yeah, so we're going to upgrade the facilities to the extent they need to be upgraded so that they're in compliance with the state and federal regulations. We're not actively soliciting, but if a developer came to us and said, hey, I want to develop this property adjacent and I want to tie into your system, we would entertain that to the extent we could do so without it negatively impacting the existing customers. And that's really a regulatory oversight requirement. The PUC doesn't want new customers to ride on the backs of old customers. They don't want the old customers to subsidize the new customers. So if we had to do an expansion or some cost to connect that new development, the new development would have to bear that cost so that you guys would stay home. Does that answer your question?
Right now, we're pretty much at the top of our limit, and if we fill this neighborhood out, we're gonna be a little over.
Right.
The way I understand it.
Typically what happens when we do upgrades, the clarifier needs an upgrade. The newer technology is more efficient, so typically you can get a little extra capacity by doing an upgrade. If that didn't work and we had to do an expansion, we would do that.
Okay.
Good question, though. Thanks for the directions, too.
Oh, you
Do you have an idea of what the percent increase in the cost for our water system, I mean, for monthly bills?
Yeah, direct answer is no, I don't, but let me just sort of tell you how the process works. So I think there's generally a misunderstanding about investor-owned utilities setting the rates. We're not allowed to set your rate. We make a filing with our cost to the Public Utility Commission, and they tell us what the rate will be. Our business model is that smaller systems, just by their very nature, cost more individually to operate than a big centralized system. And the way we've attacked that issue is by growth and by having a number of systems, giving us economies of scale to help try to mitigate the individual costs. So we have consolidated rates across the state. So when we make an investment in your community, it's spread over all of our customers, not just the customers in this community. But that works the other way too. If we make an investment someplace else, that'll get spread over sprinkled over a little bit. But that overall is a much lower impact, and it's a more steady rise in rates as opposed to big spikes in rates.
Right.
So now, our rates currently, I have to cheat. Can I look at my phone?
$49 for water,
Okay.
and roughly like, I think it was maybe in the 60s.
60s for
For
sure.
sewer, yeah.
So now we are in a rate case and have filed for rates, and typically the way that works is that the rate we file is not generally the rate that gets approved. So, but it's not uncommon that it is more expensive. We are a for-profit business.
Expected.
Yeah, but we do think that we do a really good job of managing the rates. And when we look at our rates compared to the other IOUs in the states, we're substantially lower.
But just the initial cost of this whole project, how will it be funded? I mean, how much will that cost all of us, I guess, individually, you think, for this whole thing?
So up front, nothing.
Yeah.
We're going to
Yeah,
cover
just
all those
roughly.
costs. We'll get our money back through monthly rates. So whatever. Right now, that's 50 plus 65, and that'll go up over time depending upon what it's going to cost us to do the fixes. We are planning on spending a significant amount of money fixing it. I think the LOI contemplated, Patty, that each resident would get money back.
Yeah, so they would get their,
Right.
it's their they call capital investment. And so what CSWR pays us for buying it, it goes directly back to all the members based on their equity buy-in, what they paid. Some have paid $4,600 and some have paid in the $3,000 range, because we got to go back to the very beginning of this, and not everybody paid the same buy-in fee. Now, it may not be exactly 100%, we'll have to look, but that's what we're shooting for. And we do have some members that didn't pay an equity buy-in fee at all. For example, the POA didn't pay for an equity buy-in fee for the tap at the front. I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying that's what we have in our community. We do have a handful of customers that have not paid in that capital expense.
Well, should we expect an increase in property tax?
No.
No. Okay.
No connection whatsoever.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Noticed in the samples of rates that were provided to us, you had for some of the utilities pass-through costs. Is that when water is bought from another,
Yeah.
like city?
Right.
Because you had quite a range there,
Yes, sir.
and I'm just curious. But
Yes.
that won't apply here because
It will
we're not going to be buying water from City of Austin or anybody like that.
Some communities also have groundwater conservation districts that charge fees, and we just pass those directly through dollar for dollar. We don't mark them
Yep.
up. But that would be another example of a pass-through cost.
Do we have any kind of, what about LCRA? Do we have some kind of pass-through? from
It's just
them?
a monthly fee for the raw water, that they would assume that, and there's a fee to take that water out of the lake. Nominal, it's not a,
Yes, sir.
Looking down the road with the age and usage on our meters, old Directory, Neptune, and Master, you're gonna replace them all.
That's probably true, but
Because you're only catching 50 to 80% of the water.
yeah, that's
I'm
probably
just curious, what meters do y'all use?
That's a great question.
We actually use the newest Badger meter, the AMI. It's a Nexus 7 with Itron. So we're trying to slowly, everywhere, period, not just Texas, to go to a new meter that actually captures correctly, and we can read remotely, because later we can minimize those costs in the future. We don't have to have a meter reader. So
And
that's
you
the
might imagine that we've grown through growth, right? And so all these systems used a different manufacturer and a different meter. So they're
Every
all-
one of them.
Right now, it's just everything that was ever made, we've got one of them.
Are you
Right.
talking an AMR or AMI system?
AMI. Yeah, initially we'll hook them up as AMR because they have that capability where we'll do the drive-by as soon as we get them. We use a system called High Tide across the entire country. It's a form of SCADA, if you know it. It's just a computer system that allows us to remotely monitor. Through High Tide, we can actually hook up our AMI since our network already exists.
Yes, sir. Did you have a question in the back? No? Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. That was really well done, and you obviously have a lot of experience. So I appreciate you coming. Regarding the letter of intent, that obviously allows both parties to get to know each other better, to continue a negotiation that may end in a sale if you all are willing to take that on. The process that happens is multifold, and there are points at which you're going to require internal corporate documentation from us. Can you talk about that type of documentation and the timing you would expect to receive it?
I'll do my best. So I don't think there's a purchase agreement that we'll get. We'll send you a draft. We have a standard purchase agreement. Probably 80% of the parties just sign it without any changes. But there are some parties that want to, kind of negotiate around the edges of the purchase agreement, and we'll certainly entertain those and try to be reasonable to make changes that are acceptable to us. We do have private investors, New York private equity money, and so they do have certain requirements that have to stay in the agreement that we don't have a lot of flexibility on. But beyond that, we'll negotiate the purchase agreement, we'll sign the purchase agreement. At closing, there's probably a board resolution that's going to be required. The vote is going to be a requirement. And so just basically a memo from the board with the board signatures that say, we had the vote, here was the outcome of the vote, and we've got the authorization to move forward. Often, not always, we'll sign the purchase agreement with a condition that it has to receive the membership vote. So the paperwork is sort of already done, and then if the vote comes in negative, then the contract just goes away, and if the vote comes in positive, then we move forward. So because we have a fair amount of time between now and the vote, it's really, I hadn't even talked to Patty about this yet because we were coming here to see what y'all wanted to do. But if she has the time and is able to and wants to, we could have a contract negotiated and then have that provision in it. It can already be signed, but just have a provision that it's conditioned on the outcome of the vote.
Follow up then, if I may.
Yeah.
So since your equity partner is here, maybe the question where I was trying to get to is better placed to him. Is he here? Did you say he's here? Okay, I'm sorry. So what I'm interested in is internal documents, such as financial statements. I would assume you would want to know about the financial footing of our corporation. And therefore, you don't really care about...
No, we do. I think we have that. As I don't know if we have the most recent annual report that you filed with. You're currently required to file a financial statement with the PUC, and that's usually the document that we
yeah,
that
we
we
have,
rely on.
so I think we shared with you the required Class D reports that we're now required to file because of non-compliance.
Right.
And they've taken jurisdiction over us as an IOU for
some recent filings that have been involved with this community, and so it provides a pretty clear picture.
Okay.
And
So,
I've read most of those.
Sorry, so not to interrupt you, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
That's okay.
But I'm very familiar with what our corporation is able to produce.
Okay.
The prior board was posting a full set of financial reports every month online
Okay.
to our website. That stopped when the current board went in place.
Okay.
So standing here right now, if I were asked to make a business decision about this to go forward, I have no financial information to base that upon.
Okay.
That's a problem for me that we'll take up with the board.
Okay.
But, so my question was, what financial information did you base your decision to even be interested in? Did finances enter that? I mean, are you going to assume the ownership of this huge black hole, this money pit, on purpose? Or do you do that often? And I'll end there.
Okay, I'm not sure I fully understand your question, but
Okay.
our
What's in it for us, Sean? Right? What's in it for us?
I mean, we are in the water wastewater business. We're looking at what it costs to operate, what we're going to have to invest to get them into compliance, and any historical liabilities you're going to keep. Right, so we're not taking any financial historical liabilities.
Okay.
We're buying a system and fixing it and looking forward, and we're counting rooftops. We're looking at rates. We have a financial model that we put all that in, and we've got certain investment criteria that we have to meet, and I think we've done that. We're going to, before we're done, have a licensed Texas engineer come on site and do a full assessment of all the assets that we're going to acquire. He's going to write a report. That report's going to become part of our filing with the PUC. We're going to say, here's the 6, 8, 10, 20 things that are broken. Here's our plan to fix them. Here's how long it's going to take to fix. Here's how much money we're going to spend to fix. So that's all going to happen over the course of the next 2 years.
All right, so you're not going to assume our liabilities, not going to assume our assets as well?
No, we're going to acquire the assets.
Okay, so
we're doing an asset purchase, not a stock purchase. So we're buying assets,
Okay.
physical assets.
So
We're buying
each
the
one of
water.
us is a member.
Yeah.
We have part ownership in this.
Yes.
So I would imagine that on that turnover, it would be like buying a house. There'd be a clearinghouse operation that goes on,
Now,
where all of the
With all
debtors
due
are
respect,
paying.
with all due respect, this is what we talked about earlier, the equity buy-in fee. That is your capital investment, and that is your payout. We are not allowed as a nonprofit water supply corporation to pay out any kind of stock or dividend. And so the way you style this is it's your investment capital, which is returned back to you, because that's what you invested into this utility to keep it up and running, upgrades, whatever. And so that is what you get back.
Okay, not quite what I asked, but thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, both.
I don't think I've had a question from you. Why don't you,
Hi, good morning. Thank you for coming.
you bet.
I share BOI, born on the island. We appreciate your being here. I have a couple of questions. So the process, as I'm getting it, is that you all we are expected to have a vote in December. And you have offered us a price. But you have not, as of yet, evaluated the assets to give us a reckoning of what the fair value of our existing assets are, so that we would know if we're getting a fair price. And so my question is that kind of seems a little backwards, because most of the time, if you're buying a house, you have an appraiser come in, and both parties kind of talk about that appraisal. So from a member standpoint, we're providing you with kind of the benefit of the doubt in terms of you giving us a fair appraisal for the vote, but we don't, and you've just said that you're going to have somebody come in and do that.
Well, let me clarify.
Yeah.
So I have certainly done that, right? I have come and spent half a day and looked at the community, looked at the water plant, looked at the sewer facility. We've looked at the information that's available online, which a lot of is available online. I have made an assessment, but I am not an engineer, right? But I have, over the course of the last 8 years, bought 180 systems in Texas and probably another 200 in other states. So I have a fair amount of experience doing it. So I feel pretty confident that we have a good handle on what's here and what it's worth, right? And so I think that's reflected in the offer price that we gave you. We understand there's a significant amount of money that needs to be spent. I think Patty mentioned in her presentation briefly this morning that there's probably $1 million or more in upgrades that the community would have to make. And so what we've seen in other places is because we do this all the time and it's the only thing we do, we can often make those improvements at a lower cost than perhaps you all might be able to make them. But we've factored in the likelihood that we're going to be spending not just over $1 million to buy it, but well over $1 million to invest in it. And so that's all been included in what we've provided you.
And so will that, what you're saying is that you're going to invest in the future in our assets. Is that part of the proposed, will that be part of the proposed contract to the members for the vote?
No, because you've got to do a deep dive on that and you have to go it out for bid, right? And so once we buy it, the risk on getting the work done at a certain price, we bear that. You don't have to bear that anymore. But there's no question that significant work has to be done just to get into compliance, and we are required by the regulators to get it in compliance.
So the board hasn't provided you with its own version of valuation?
No, they have.
They have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also to add to that, Sean, and you may have already said this, is going through the PUC process. There's a lot of I's that have to be dotted and T's that have to be crossed when it comes to all of this. And correct me if I'm wrong, do they have to assign an appraiser to come out or evaluate it, or no? How does that look? What does that look like?
So it is likely that we'll go through an appraisal process, but not in order to determine valuation, right? So years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and if I'm getting into the weeds and giving you more information than you want, I apologize, but it used to be that when an IOU bought a system, we could only put the depreciated net book value in rates. And what that led to was old systems that had been fully depreciated wouldn't sell because they couldn't recoup any money, right? You'd have an individual that had built out a subdivision and run the water and sewer business for 40 years, and he's getting a salary and he's getting his insurance and he's got his family members that are on the payroll and he's getting his vehicles all covered, and so, but his business is fully depreciated, right? And the state legislators looked at Texas and said, we need consolidation. Texas has 10,000 plus water and sewer systems, many of them, 80% of them, less than 1,000 connections. And the requirements continue to get ratcheted up, right? The Clean Water Act set out a path and technology has improved that we can now see things in our drinking water that we couldn't see before, and we're like, oh, we need to get that out of the drinking water, right? And so the requirements continue to go up every year, and that's the federal government mandating that. The states are implementing it, and it's forcing the smaller operator out of business. And the state legislature saw that happen and said, we need to encourage consolidation, and the way we're going to do that is go get an appraisal, and the lower of the appraised price or the purchase price, whichever is lower, is going to be what we allow you to get put in your rates. We're not going to allow you to earn more than you paid, but if it will let you up to the appraised amount. So the appraisal helps us recoup our initial investment to you, and then as we make those expenditures, they have to be used and useful, and then we'll make a filing with the PUC after we've made the improvements and they're in use and useful. In other words, we can't do something stupid that doesn't work. It has to be the right thing to do. They'll review that and say, okay, you were prudent on what you spent and it's used and useful, and that capital expenditure allows us to recoup our investment. So the purchase price and the capital are things that we'll invest, and because of how the regulations work, we're allowed to recoup our investments. So your current financial black hole stays with you.
I do understand. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
So one other question.
Yeah.
There's a pending lawsuit regarding breach of contract for lack of water provision to a property across the way, and the plaintiff is asking for between $200,000 and $1 million. If that were decided against, and I'm sure that process will be lengthy, if the plaintiff is successful at court, how would that, how would those awards and damages, who would be responsible?
I have no idea.
Yeah, and they have no information on this, and
You don't have information on the?
No, I wouldn't categorize it that way. I would just say I'm not an attorney and I have no idea what the outcome would be.
that's being held by that information. That information is shared at board meetings, so I encourage everybody to come to the board meetings when we talk about that, because we have talked about that.
Yeah.
And people probably don't know, down the Exeter, just off past the second dirt road, there's some sort of equipment that it kind of smells a little bit, and it's fenced by about 5 acres. It's part of the water system that's in the greenbelt right down here.
I believe you're talking about the wastewater treatment plant, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's not that big.
No,
And trucks can drive in there.
Right.
But I wonder, that's about 5 acres of fenced area. We
Right.
ride our horses
Right.
around there. But you mentioned 24 acre and then fencing. Is this equipment gonna be really big? Like I live also in Lakeway, and they have this great big crater, kind of treatment water thing.
I don't think it's going to be a lot bigger. There might be another train, or it's a little mechanical plant is what it's describing. And then the 24 acres is the spray field, right? So
Okay.
you're discharging, instead of into a creek or a body of water, I believe you're discharging into the field. And the 5 acres isn't big enough. And how many acres you have to discharge over is dictated by the TCEQ, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality,
Right.
sets the standards that they're getting from the EPA or the federal government and then applying.
So is that piece obsolete now, probably?
No, I don't think it is obsolete.
Okay.
I
Just
think
curious.
To add to that, this might answer your other question. It's possible, I don't know that, but if this were to go through, it's possible that maybe CSWR would want to upgrade that affluent, what we have currently.
Yeah.
And then the 24-acre fence wouldn't be mandatory by TCQ, because we are all the way down here
Yeah.
on how we treat that, and because we're down here, we're required to do the 24 acres.
Yeah.
If we should upgrade, I'm sure you can speak to that, Clarence, if we should upgrade it, it might remove that 24.
That's absolutely right. The fence is absolutely, it's required by the state. When you have a spray field, they say you must keep away from so many feet from people. So if y'all are out there riding horses
Yeah.
around it, that's why the fence.
Right.
I don't like spray fields. Way down the road, capital projects, when we start cleaning it, I personally would say bye-bye spray field, depending on cost, things like that, how reasonable it is. Don't like spray fields for that reason. That's so much green space that's lost, and we really have our hands tied when we're dealing with that.
Is that a chain link fence that y'all usually put around, or what kind of fence?
Chain link? Is it?
If you did that.
So I prefer wood. So again, the state TCQ dictates the fence. You can have an 8 foot. If I do an 8 foot, I'm going to do wood. So it hides it, makes it look nicer. Or you can have a 6 foot chain link with 3 strands of barb around the top that kind of look like a prison facility. So that's your options. So when I have an opportunity, it costs more, but I do prefer the wood fence because it's better for the community. We want to be good partners. I don't like the chain link.
What about all the wildlife?
Yeah, there's a lot of deer.
There's a lot of deer and there's a lot of wildlife over there.
So it's going to come down again to if we're the what we call sanitary control easement, what we've got to keep away from the people. So the spray field, we don't have a lot of control there. It says, again, acreage, people, you must stay away from that. If it's someplace we have to add a fence, all I'm doing is trying to maintain the set. Usually it's about 150 foot distance around it. So the fence wouldn't necessarily be at the edge of the property.
And these are not our choices, right? We're simply implementing what the state has told us they're mandating. So these are things that if you choose to keep the systems, you will be required to do and to pay for yourself. Yeah. We're simply saying if we buy the system, we think that we bring value because we've done it so many times, so many other places, that we can do it cheaper and in a way that's better for the communities. So, yes, ma'am.
What replaces the spray field?
That's what I was going to ask.
Oh, okay.
So, well, I'm going to get way out of my skis here, but it's the effluent that they look at, and if you're treating the effluent to a level that it's okay to discharge it somewhere else into a stream or some other way, or maybe you can discharge in a more concentrated area because it doesn't have as many bad things in the water anymore. But I mean, you can probably answer her more specifically.
It would be via upgrades at the wastewater treatment plant itself. Like when we replace the clarifier, there's technologies now that alone would help. And we might not need the spray field. We might be able to do a different type of discharge. If I can get away with make a spray field go bye-bye, that's my choice, always. I'm not promising that, I'm just saying, I'm gonna be looking at it.
But no matter what kind of upgrade you do to the sewer plant, there's still gonna be effluent discharge.
Yes.
But
Yeah, we
so
can.
you're saying it could be possibly dumped right back into the lake?
That possibly.
Okay.
It's a long way from the lake.
So that's actually going to determine a lot of it is
so the
current
clarifier
requirements.
that they're talking about is actually at the water plant treating the lake water.
Okay,
And
all
then,
right.
and then the treatment plant is in a different spot, and the spray field is up
I got
at the
you. All
treatment.
right. Yeah, because I haven't seen the system yet. In my world, clarifier is usually a wastewater plant,
Yeah.
not a water plant. So
Right.
you have a little different system.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
they're a little different setup, yeah.
So, it's gonna make everybody go, but is there ever a situation where you get the effluent from the sewer plant, clean it up, that it can go back in and be treated as drinking water?
So they certainly do that in Europe.
And here in Texas, several
And there are some places in Texas, I don't know if they're drinking it, but they're certainly irrigating with
They
it.
are.
It's pretty popular around San Antonio where they're doing that. That is a pretty expensive undertaking, and I would not anticipate that was something that we would do here.
City of Wichita Falls, El Paso, several cities have actually piped their wastewater discharge right back into their surface water treatment plant after they've made upgrades because they ran out of water.
And I would tell you,
But it's expensive.
I live in St. Louis, and our water comes from the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, and those are not clean. But the water is fantastic.
I
don't foresee that happening here.
So what happens on day one, for example, if it's just to be voted on by the members? What happens on day one if
Well, there's a lot between now and day one, right? So there'll be we'll have the engineers will out, they'll do their assessments, we'll have time to prep all that. And so what's the first thing we're gonna do on day one, 2 years from now? I don't know. You may not notice much, if any, changes. You should. We're required by statute to notify you that your provider is changing and here's your new way to pay and who to call when you have a problem. I didn't really highlight that, but we do feel like we provide a level of customer service that is really outstanding. We have partnerships with Family Dollar, Dollar General, Walmart, different places that you can go into and make payment directly. If you're in town and want to drop your payment off, you can certainly pay online. You can certainly mail your check in. We have a 24/7 customer service number that you can call. It's going to be a US-based English-speaking person that's going to answer your phone and take it.
They're in Missouri. They're in Missouri. We do not farm it out. They're in Missouri. And that information is really tracked, right? All of that gets sent to the PUC. So if you're like me and you had a problem with your water line and you saw the water guy working across the street, you'd just go over and grab him and say, hey, come over here and fix this. But actually, that's the worst thing you can do, because if you'll call the 800 service number, it opens a ticket that gets tracked all the way to the PUC. So if we don't respond within the time period that we're required to respond, or we don't do what we're going to say we're going to do, there's a record, but there's only a record because you called the 800 number, right? And if you just go over and grab the guy, then you might remember it differently than he or she remembered it, and so there's a discrepancy. So really, it gives you protection. Because we are so heavily regulated, calling the PUC really starts the motion if you ever have any issues. We hope that you'll call us first, and we hope that we'll respond. We believe that we have a great track record of good responses. I hadn't seen the figures in a long time, but the last time I looked at the figures, I think 90+% of the people that called the customer service number and then chose to fill out the survey at the end of the call were satisfied and gave us 10s across the 98%.
98%.
So our founder can call me and tell me, and has, when I'm being too slow in the field to take care of a concern.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, because we're a newer company, we're really a technology-based company, and so every morning the operators have a smartphone, they get their stuff, right? Here's the 10 things you need to do today. We're going to install a GPS monitoring device that if you're supposed to go to the Windermere wastewater treatment plant and check a valve or check the effluent, do a water test, you can't physically check the box that said you did that if you're not within 5 feet of the wastewater treatment plant. So you can't sit at home drinking a beer, watching a ball game, and say, "Oh yeah, I did all that," right? So
people try. People try.
We do think that adds a lot of value. Yes, sir.
So, are you going to, when you start off, are you going to be servicing our system with existing personnel, or will you increase staff, or do you need to do that?
Well, so especially a system of this size, which, I mean, it's not a large system, but it's a good size system, and you have staff, that our preference is to retain the current people doing the work. They know everything that's not written down. And in the water and sewer business, there's a lot of things that aren't written down. And the things that are on the maps that says the line is here, actually they'll know, well, I know the map says it's there, but it's actually 12 feet this direction,
That's
right?
one of the black holes we were talking about.
Yeah, so we will invest in, identifying where all the lines are, and what's the new technology buzzword for the dot plot map that Mark does?
No.
Huh?
Oh, the GIS.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we're going to
GIS, yes.
GIS all all of your system if you don't already have that, right? And chances are you don't have that. And so we're going to create that as a requirement. And that takes time and money.
So are you saying that you're gonna subcontract still out to our current operators? And that's the staff that we have, right, Patty?
Yeah.
It may be, sometimes it's a subcontract, sometimes we hire
Yeah,
them. It really, we haven't had those conversations yet, so I don't
Yeah,
want to get
right.
ahead of that process. Sometimes they want to keep working and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're like, yeah, I've done this for 4 years and I'm done. And if they don't want to stay on, then we do have systems in the area that will find people that can do that, or we'll send some people here to do that until we find somebody in the area that does that, or we can get them licensed and trained to do that. Or, you know, Clarence will move up here and take care of it.
It's funny because I've been taking care of Bermuda the last 2 days of Christmas, so my guys could be off.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Thank you. Your answers are very enlightening. Thank you.
Oh, good.
And this may be more of a question for the board. What I'm unclear on is, so at the beginning of the meeting, Patty talked about assessments for the membership, for the clarifier and the chain link fence, all that kind of stuff. So what I'm unclear on, if we vote in December to accept you all, but there's a 2-year process for you all to come in, but we need a clarifier. You're saying that you're going to invest in us, but then Patty was talking about assessments for us for those items.
It's a great question. So let me tell you how
does that
I
work?
Have handled it in other places. And there's no, we always do it this way, right? But often the TCEQ or the regulators that are putting pressure on you, because we've got such good relationships with them, if you say, hey, we've entered into a contract with CSWR and they're committing to fix all this, they'll sort of back off, right? If it's a situation where it's a public health hazard and that isn't appropriate to do, then we would review the work, you would do it, and then we would pay you for it as an adder to the contract at close.
And that's in the contract right now?
I don't know, because I sent you my standard agreement. That's not a standard provision, but we certainly can include that.
Okay.
So,
And, you know, just so you know,
yeah.
the clarifier is more of an issue of the fact that it can't keep up in low water conditions, which our lake right now is high water. We were saved by the recent rainfall.
Right.
But there are projections by the Central Texas Water Coalition
Right.
that water is going to subside much more faster because we have so many straws in the lake.
Right.
And so the issue is that as that water goes down, the turbidity is increased.
Right.
And the existing clarifier will not be able to keep up
Right.
with system demands. So the issue then, of course, is trucking in water, which this community has looked at in the past and had to plan for. So I'm trying to just provide you with additional information.
Yeah, so, yeah, we actually have facilities that we could probably assist if you do need to truck water in. We've got some facilities that we could probably help with that. Our clear preference, and I think it's best for you, is to wait and let us do the improvements, because we think we're going to add an expertise and economies of scale that are going to allow us to do it cheaper. But if that's not practical or safe and the improvements need to happen at a faster timeline, then we will certainly review and want to say, yes, we don't want you doing something that we think is unnecessary, but you would have to get an engineer to draw up the plans, and you'd have to find the contractors. I mean, we can give you those names, but because you're the legal owner of the system, you'll have to make those investments. And then, you know, like I said, you know, when we got to close, it would be whatever the purchase price is plus these investments that we've pre-approved that you've made, right? And we need receipts, and there's a whole process, but it's not uncommon. It's just not, it's not uncommon, but it's not frequent, so it's not in our agreement, I don't think, today, because I don't even know if Patty's even looked at it, but she's just got the boilerplate that we start with, and then each community has specific things that are really only for them, and we'll sit down and talk through those and add provisions as we need to.
And are there third-party water company representatives that our board could hire to further negotiate these matters with you? Because our board wouldn't contain, nor would legal representation necessarily have the necessary experience to negotiate that with you. Are there third-party water assessors that would create a evaluation for us and then also discuss these adders that you're
I'm
talking
sure
about?
there are, but that's not really, I wouldn't be able to point you anywhere. I don't know. My struggle with it is they all have their own agenda, right? And so.
And I think we have an agenda. We've had 25,
We have
30.
attorneys that are already involved,
Right.
that have already
Any
looked.
question you're gonna ask, Joe?
We've had 30 years of this corporation neighborhood building these assets, and so I think the neighborhood wants to know that it's, that these contingencies are.
Well, what I will say is very few communities that I deal with have a Patty that has the knowledge base that she brings to the table. So I think you're very well represented, just because her job is very, honestly, there's just not very many people that are willing to do what she's doing for free. I mean, that's the truth.
And without pay. Yeah, Joe didn't do it for free.
Yes, ma'am.
If, let's say it goes through and y'all come in, would the first thing that you do build the fence, unless upgrades are made in the decision making?
It's impossible to know because we got to do the assessment, and if our assessment is we're going to add some downstream treatment technology and we don't need the fence, or we don't need 24 acres of fence, and I don't know that answer yet until the engineer tells me what we're going to do, and then we'll have to price it. And prices are coming down a little bit, but 3 years ago, labor and materials was just shooting through the roof, and if I priced it, today in 6 weeks, I'd have to price it again because the cost had gone up 10%. So to project what the cost will be to do those upgrades 2 years from now, I just am not comfortable doing that.
Okay.
So,
Okay, well,
am I done?
is that
I've done a lot of these. This is a very well-attended meeting. I know you guys probably think, well, there's, we're a fraction of the people that live here, and everybody should be interested, and I agree with that, but everybody's not. So you all should commend yourselves for taking time to come out. I was a little worried when it was open air that we might have some rain, but God shined on us today, and it's a beautiful day. So thank you all.
Okay, thanks. Thank you guys so much. Like I said, we are going to have a board vote on December 13th. It will be here. I'm sorry, a members meeting. A members meeting to vote on this, and that's all that's going to be on the agenda. We'll be able to comment on that. And that's pretty much it. I thank everyone for coming. This is great. We all stayed somewhat, positive.
There's some kind of colorful
yes.
propaganda that you're welcome to take if you want it. It's sort of a nice summary of why you might want to consider doing this and what some of the advantages
And to
are.
add, we have information on our website. Please go to our website. Please sign up for alerts, and you can get more and more information. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
y'all. Y'all had some great questions. Thank you.
Pardon me. Yeah, were you talking about the big thing?
Good to see you. Good to see